What is up everyone, Talon here, and welcome back to the Amped Airsoft channel. Today we're going to be going over one of the newest gas blowbacks from KWA, the TAC-9, and let's get into it. Now, KWA is very well known for producing not only their electric recoil system, their adjustable velocity AEGs, but also producing gas blowback replicas. And even going back many years ago, KWA was still very prevalent in the gas blowback market, producing very unique replicas. For people who are not in the know, or at least are familiar with KWA in the gas blowback realm, they have made quite a few models over the years, and I feel like I just need to list a couple off for you guys because it made me feel old. The very first one, at least that I was able to find, was the Beretta M93R, which, last I heard, is getting discontinued, but that one was manufactured and released as early as 2006. So if you feel like that is we're talking 20 years ago, that this pistol was released, the M93R. There are so many airsofters that are getting into the game that are younger than that airsoft model. So if you feel like you need to share this with a very old airsofter, really let them feel their age. Go ahead and share this video with your oldest airsoft friend. Just see if they remember when the M93R came out, or even if they ever had one in their collection. Now that was in 2006, and then we have a couple of heavy hitters in the later years. We have the gas blowback MP7 in 2009 era, the KMP9 in 2010, the Vector in 2012, the LM4 in 2012 as well as the Masada. They got the AK-74 the following year in 2013, and then we have the Scorpion in 2014. Now, for anyone that is familiar with that era of 2009 to 2014, we had a couple heavy hitter video games that came out onto the market. And for a bunch of guys like ourselves, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Battlefield 3, Bad Company, really prevalent video games that were utilizing a lot of those replicas in their video games. And you're telling me, as I'm sitting there, Call of Duty lobby, sweating it up in high school, I could have taken that exact loadout and applied it to airsoft? That would have been game over. If you guys have ever done that, or at least are considering maybe doing a Call of Duty or video game loadout, let me know down in the comment section below. Are you doing more of a Call of Duty type of loadout, or maybe you're doing the new Battlefield 6 loadout? Let me know down below. But that's not it for the list, because we also have the Radiant Gas Blowback in 2021, the F90 in 2023, the Beretta PMX in 2024, and now the TAC-9, which came out in 2005. And I have been keeping a very close eye on this replica in particular when it was teased in early 2004. And of course, I needed to do a deep dive on this replica in particular in order to get the basis and the groundwork of what this is supposed to represent and how I, as an airsofter, could utilize it either for my own roleplay, my own immersion, or how I could potentially utilize it to my own benefit to rule the airsoft field. So before we get into the actual history portion of it, let's actually get into the performance and the features of this product. The total length of the TAC-9 is going to be, with the stock folded in, 15 inches and 24 inches with the stock folded out. Little spoiler alert, the stock folds. The weight of the TAC-9, because it is a gas blowback with the provided magazine in the box, is going to be 5.5 pounds. The outer barrel length is going to be 5.3 inches. The inner barrel length is going to be 146 millimeters. The magazine style is going to be green gas coming from the box, but there are going to be options for CO2 magazines that I would really like to test out. That is something that is supposed to be cross-compatible with the KMP-9, and I'm going to talk more of that later on in this video. And of course, we have the advertised velocity of 330 to 350 feet per second with the gas blowback magazine with 0.20 gram BBs. Now, I'll be honest, that velocity could change if you are going to utilize these CO2 magazines. That is going to be something we are going to do more testing on once we get those CO2 magazines. Also note that KWA does plan and intend to have different bolts available for the TAC-9. Very similar to what they did with the KMP-9, they have their outdoor bolt and then they have their CQB bolt. So it does look like KWA plans on releasing some of those bolts in the very near future, looking at the disassembly instructions in the provided manual. Now we're going to do a tip to butt, a visual overview. At the very front of our replica here, we do have a polymer orange tri-lug muzzle brake. What this is going to do is going to cover 12 positive threading. I want to make that very clear for you guys that this is not going to be a 14 counterclockwise muzzle. This is going to be a 12 positive. So you will need to get the adapter that was originally designed for the MP7 to work on this guy. We do not have any of the tri-lugs, mock suppressors or tracer units that could potentially work on this guy. So I don't know 100% if it is going to work or not. But because I like to have my little bit smaller tracer units, either from G&G or from Acetec, I made sure to get a adapter, which I currently don't have on here. I will let you know as well that there is going to be just a single little set screw. In this case, it is towards the top. Loosen that set screw just a little bit and it does come off very easily. Just as a heads up, you do not need to gorilla grip it and do any type of ripping. We have the upper receiver, well, the handguard that goes up into the upper receiver, which is going to be a monolithic single piece. On this particular model with the handguard, the way that it's represented, you do have M-lock slots on the 3, 6, and 9 o'clock position. On the 3 and 9 o'clock position, you only have the single slot that is here in the very center. I ran my finger over that and I realized that I forgot to take my Picatinny adapter off. So underneath that is going to be the single layer or single strip of M-lock that you have to attach it. So on this side, I put a Picatinny piece so I could mount a flashlight for some of the demo clips. And then on the other side that comes with the replica is going to be a QD interface on the very front here. This is removable. You can change it around if you want to have your flashlight on this side, on the left side. On the very bottom, you do have a vertical grip that is going to come with the replica as well. This is going to be the KWA vertical grip. Also is going to be M-lock, so this is removable if you would prefer a hand stop, some type of flashlight attachment, a underbarrel grenade launcher. Whatever you prefer, you have options available. On the very top of the upper receiver, going from the handguard to the upper, we have our KWA flip-up iron sights. Now what's interesting about these is these are going to be a very similar model or replica of the MP7 flip-up front iron sights. On the very downward position that the iron sights are set at, you do have your iron sights, so they are going to be white marked, the regular post on the very front, and then a notch at the rear. These do flip up and they are going to be adjustable for windage and for elevation, so that is certainly very cool. However, given the fact that this is a very short barreled system, 146 millimeters, you can see some of the footage, it was a little bit trickier to get consistent hits at greater distances. And when I say greater distances, probably say 150 feet, hitting about a dinner plate size target. And that is going to be the limitations of not only gas blowback, but a shorter length inner barrel. I do know compared to other brands on the market, this one does seem to be performing a little bit better, which I do like and I do enjoy. Still on the front of the handguard here, we do have your charging handle, which is ambidextrous and does flip around. So the Eve 4 and the Eve 9 are going to feature a very similar charging handle like this, where you are able to hook your finger on and pull it downward. And it is going to lock itself to the rear, especially since we have a magazine that is empty and ungassed. So since you have this held and retained backwards, you could stick your finger up into the hop-up unit and make adjustments to the hop-up unit. Otherwise, this will also allow you, push this slightly forward, there is a tab that is hidden underneath the folding part of the front iron sight. You stick a little tool inside there, pull it backwards, and it does allow you to pull and remove this charging handle and position it to the other side. So if you are a right-handed shooter like myself, it is relatively easy, and maybe we have a clip of it, for me to take my thumb here, pull it back like so, and make any adjustments or check how many BBs I have, if I have just the one in the chamber, you know, whatever the case is, and then I can let that go. Versus if you are left-handed, you would want to have that same functionality utilizing your other hand. So the charging handle is swappable for everyone's personal preferences. How cool is that? Since we are talking about the Bolt and the hop-up unit, the hop-up unit does have an upgraded feature that I prefer compared to the original KMP9s. This one in particular is going to have different notches and different retention points that are built onto the adjustment wheel. So it is a little bit tricky to get your hand on the inside of here. They do not have a tool, so you are designed to, or you are supposed to utilize your finger, but maybe you can hear it. But there is going to be notches. If you can hear that. Those are the clicks of the different positions of the hop-up unit, which I personally prefer. Compared to the original KMP9s, I'm going to utilize that as my baseline because I've had this for several years now. The KMP9 hop-up unit over a very long duration of play can loosen its hop-up adjustment. I have modified mine so it doesn't happen as often, but it does happen from time to time. This one, I do feel confident is not going to be an issue. I did utilize it here at the arena, just doing some quick promotional stuff, and I did not lose that hop-up adjustment once I had it set, which is very cool. I really like having that positive retention feature. On the other side of the receiver is going to be your bolt release. So this is a weird, like, it's not ambidextrous, but it kind of is. Because if you are left-handed, you can reach up with your pointer finger, press that downward, and that is going to release the bolt and let it slide forward. So even though it doesn't allow full functionality of what a right-handed shooter would do, which if you are completely empty and the bolt is locked to the rear, so bolt locked open, you would be able to slide that new magazine in, hit the bolt release with your magazine hand, and then you're back up. Compared to if I do that same motion, but swapping hands, when you do that reload function, you don't have anywhere for your magazine hand to go to hit the bolt release. You have to reach up in order to hit that bolt release. So kind of ambidextrous, but also not truly ambidextrous. That's just my own little gripe. But I get that KBWay might want to save a little bit of cost, especially keeping the system as simple as possible so that they can make sure that they have the best machine parts that they can put inside of here for you guys. And like I said, just a little bit that I've been running, and I've been keeping a close eye on this when it was announced. I have not personally heard any issues evolving around this replica. So I do feel very, very good about it. Your magazine release, interestingly enough, is ambidextrous. So if you are right-handed, you can reach up, hit this switch on the very top here, which is going to be a little bit odd, considering that you need to give it a very firm press in order to hit that switch on the inside. But once you got it out, it's out, and then can slide and lock into place. I personally have found that if you do the right-handed magazine release, it's a little bit smoother. You get a little bit more effort out of it, and it comes out very, very easily. While we're talking about this, I do want to point out that it is advertised and marketed that the original KMP9 magazines will work inside of the TAC-9. Yes, they will work, However, we have noticed that the feed lips between the original KMP-9 and the new TAC-9, other than the obvious base plate that we have on the very bottom here, the feed lips are going to be thinner on the new magazines compared to the original magazines, which I have preferred the thicker ones. My KMP-9s, I'm not intentionally dropping them, but they have moved around and have been jostled in my gear bag, and some of them have taken a couple of drops from my dump pouch, and none of these feed lips have broken on me. So I'm not saying that this is an issue, but just be very aware that even though you have this base plate, which is supposed to help with drops, I would not drop your magazine. I have noticed that there are also some weird quirks with the KMP-9 magazine not wanting to fit inside of the mag well very well. So we might have a clip of me having to slap this in a couple of times in order to get it to work and operate. But once you get it in and operating, or in and seated, it will operate and do what it's supposed to do. I've also noticed that on a fully loaded magazine, that there is a weird little hiccup where the bolt is not going to want to slide all the way forward, or excuse me, on a fully loaded KMP-9 magazine, the original one, the trigger, for whatever reason, doesn't want to actuate. It gets stuck as if it's on safe. But I don't have it on safe. And you can see me where I'm able to move this, just get it worked out, which is very tight, and then I am able to get it to fire, at least dry fire. So then what it was is racking the system, so having a shot prepared, sliding the KMP-9, original KMP-9 magazine in, getting it seated in position, and then it was able to fire in function. So it is something with the length and position of the BBs and the feed lips. I just don't know where that tension issue is, but something to be aware of. They are compatible, but just be aware that the magazines can stick and you might run into that trigger issue. As we work our way backwards, we do have the lower receiver, as I have been talking about. The lower receiver is going to be an all polymer construction and is going to feature a somewhat realistic looking trigger pack that is on the inside of here. For legal reasons with the ATF here in the United States, they are not going to be a one-to-one with any type of real trigger packs and are going to be proprietary to KWA. And I'm very thankful for KWA for making those just odd enough to where I can have all these different gas blowback models from KWA and is not going to be limited to just the European or Asian market like what we see with VFC. So there's that. The upper receiver is going to be an all metal construction, so that is going to cut down on the weight of having a metal upper and a polymer lower. It also means that it is going to be a little bit cheaper to manufacture as well. And this is a very nice, very solid polymer. I have liked a lot of the stuff that they have been producing with this type of polymer. The grip, because it is relevant to the real variant of what this is based off of, this grip is not removable. It is completely melded into the lower receiver. So compared to the newest edition of the APC-9, which does feature a removable grip, this one is not. This is modeled after the original APC-9. Small little interruption there. For Airsoft, we do have the very cool 3-position selector switch that is fully ambidextrous. So you do have it on the right-hand side and the left-hand side. So safety is going to work. You've heard me do it, but semi does work. And then flip that over, auto does work as well. As we go backwards on the replica, there is going to be this sling plate. Now this sling plate is going to be here for a couple of different reasons. One, it is going to hold the Picatinny adapter, the Picatinny slots on the very back of the replica, so you can have the different types of stocks. This one in particular that is coming with the replica is going to be a hinging or folding stock. You can get different models if you want something that is going to be a little bit longer, stuff that is going to have a different curve if you are doing some type of police, law enforcement, SWAT type of build, or you want to run a buffer tube adapter on the very back here to have a telescoping stock. Or you can just remove it entirely because you don't need the stock on there for the system to fire. With the stock folded, I will say and mention that it is easy enough to grip around here. That is something that is shared in commonality with the KMP-9, where that stock folds right by the grip. The stock is going to fold right by that upper receiver. So once it's folded, it's easy enough to grab around here and just manhandle the replica in order to do your maneuvering, or have it stored in a backpack on your way to a game. There are going to be a couple of tabs on the very front of the or towards the rear of the upper receiver that interfaces with your sling plate. This is going to be part of your takedown lever. You can hear that as I pull it back, it is going to come out of position, and it's going to want to lock into a new position. And that position is machined into the sling plate. So if you need to take your TAC-9 apart for any type of cleaning, maintenance, or changing your bolt out to a CQB variant, you are going to press this pin out from the other side. You might need to utilize some type of tool such as a pin punch. Once you have that done, you can press on this tab and your entire upper receiver is going to hinge and fold forward, hinging off of this front pin here. So you do not need to remove this front pin, remove just this rear pin, and then press back on this, and then it folds open. Very convenient, very simple compared to the KMP-9. So much easier trying to change that bolt out. I'm very glad that I have had to take this apart a very minimal amount of times, because every time I have to, it is a rather lengthy process. This, just looking at it and looking at the internals, is so much simpler. It's going to be great for people who are getting into gas blowbacks and need to have easier access to their internals for cleaning, maintenance, or replacing parts. So there is that. The last point that I want to make as far as the tip to butt is going to be the stock itself. In the fashion of the TAC-9, where it is going to be ambidextrous, the stock folding is ambidextrous as well. You can actually change the orientation of how the stock is supposed to fold. So you're going to press downward in this orientation, and it's going to fold to the right side of the replica. What you can do is there are these two pin punches that you can punch out, and then that'll allow you to flip the sling over and then take this apart, or not take it apart, but remove it from the Picatinny slots, flip it around, and then your sling, or your stock, is now folding on the left side of the replica, which is very cool. I like to think that if I was a right-handed shooter, I would be more apt to folding the stock out in this orientation compared to having it folded out because of that down pressure. It is a little bit tight compared to here, which if I have my grip here, I need to very carefully reach over, undo it, which is like a little bit awkward compared to doing it like that. However, I'm going to play devil's advocate, where on the KMP-9, it also has the folding stock on the right-hand side here. And I have been able to grab it, fold it out without any type of issue. So I don't think that you need to make any adjustments to the stock, but it is there if you want to. And at the very end of the stock, we do have our quick disconnect, our QD fitting for sling attachments. So you have your sling attachments on the very back here on this plate. So if you wanted to run it like I have with my KMP-9, just a 1-point orientation, you can do that with these guys. Grab some 550 cord, lock those into place here. Otherwise, quick detach point, and then that is your 2-point sling, which I find to be extremely nifty. Now, I did do a separate segment of the TAC-9 and shooting it at a longer distance that we can afford here inside of the Amped Airsoft Arena at about 150 feet. Now, the way that I have it set up is the longest distance that I could get was at one side of the wall and then going over to the stairway and then straddling the handrail so I could try to shoot at this dinner-sized target, or dinner plate-sized target. The issue is that, and part of the challenge that made it fun, is that there are two walls that are jutting out away from the hallway. So there was about 6 inches or less of clearance that I needed to shoot with the TAC-9 through that gap in order to hit and impact that dinner plate size target. Now, I was very pleasantly surprised that once I did find where my red dot was going, as well as figuring out the gas pressure as well as the hop up, I was able to get it somewhat consistently. More so just showcasing that there are some limitations with this shorter length of inner barrel system. You can upgrade it to a tight bore inner barrel. If you do get something that does have a mock suppressor that is elongated, or you want to go with an even longer barrel, if you would prefer to have that, that is something that you can continue to elongate as well. Changing the bucking out, we have also seen, does lead to more consistency of that BB flight path. So that is something to experiment or maybe look at upgrading if you did want to get into the TAC-9. However, in my opinion, and again, playing with something that is a very comparable setup, I think that this was very, very, very well suited and was consistently hitting that target through that very small gap. Very often it was hitting the walls on either side, so just missing it ever so slightly, and that could have been me just straddling the handrail. Not the greatest support position, but I was able to get those shots. Granted, this is a CQB type of replica and is not really designed for those longer engagements, but I was very pleasantly surprised and very happy that it was capable and able to do that, at least be very precise and accurate when I needed it to be. So that is the down and dirty of how it shot. Now let's talk about what this is in particular. The TAC-9 is going to be a very close semblance to the B&T APC-9 and the APC-9 Pro specifically. What you've probably seen on the market is that there are going to be officially licensed B&T APC-9 replicas that you can purchase and you can get and take very similar KMP9 style of magazines like the real one actually is. Now, KW Weight does not have the license for B&T, so they were not able to produce the APC-9. So this is the current status that KW Weight was able to produce that APC-9, again, without impeding any type of licensing issues, which we see KW Weight leaning more into a law enforcement and military training bridge gap between Airsoft and the real steel variant. I talked about previously in the video the Lithgow F90 that KW Weight is producing, which is a gas blowback variant. I am very lucky that I have one still in my possession that I am holding on to and showcasing off to you guys if we get to it and are able to present it. But that is one specifically for the Australian military. Not a lot of people in the US are familiar with Lithgow or Thales as a firearms manufacturer just because they're not here in the US. For the Australian military, they are utilizing the Airsoft variant in their CQB training scenarios, so they can get a lot more repetition at a much lower cost, as well as in a much safer environment compared to utilizing simunition rounds or paintball replicas, whatever their previous version was. So the TAC-9, I believe, is something that is going to fit within that as well. Now, within the real world of the APC-9 from B&T, it is a relatively newer firearm. It was produced and modeled back in 2011 when B&T was looking at replacing the MP5. The original design was put onto a napkin, according to some sources. So the reason that the APC-9 is ambidextrous is because one of the owners and designers for B&T is going to be a left-handed shooter. So a lot of the firearms from B&T are going to be a ambidextrous configuration. So with the APC-9 in particular, the first big contract was with the Austrian Cobra unit, which is a very elite specialized unit that is a very elite level of SWAT. They deal with counterterrorism and extreme situations within their, not only their country, but internationally as well. They actually had stopped a plane hijacking while it was mid-flight. And I think it was one of the earliest situations where that occurred and a response unit was able to be in the air and respond. They successfully handled the situation, landed, and they are very well known and they are held to a very high standard. So the fact that those groups within the real world are trusting the B&T APC-9 and utilizing it very often as a very regular weapon does lead to a lot of opportunity for utilizing airsoft as that middle ground. And it's not just Austrian at that as well. There's plenty of other European and international countries that are utilizing the APC-9 as a specialized unit weapon. And very recently, we had the US Army SCW. I did get that right. The SCW program, the Subcompact Weapon Program, which was a new adoption for a submachine gun, a compact submachine gun, that would replace the M3 grease gun. Well, not replace, but it's the most recent adoption of an SMG since the M3 grease gun. And you're probably thinking about the MP5s, the MP7s, other SMGs that the US Army utilizes very often, which are more of a situational usage where they will purchase a rather small batch, utilize them for whatever unit or whatever exercise or situation, but it is not a Army adoption, which is what this is. So the US Army adopted it, and very shortly after, the US Air Force adopted it as well. We also have the US Customs as well as the US Border Patrol, who have all adopted the APC-9, again for those specialized circumstances, but it is a full adoption rather than purchasing a small batch. Plenty of opportunity for KDB Weight to have a system that they can integrate into what all of these agencies are already utilizing. Again, bringing the cost down for training, getting a lot more reps in so we can get a lot more manual of arms, a lot more repetition of handling and moving with it and having it on your gear, as well as just making the end user more confident in having the APC-9 on their person. So with all that being said, guys, let me know down in the comment section below if you think that this would be a good addition to your kit, your airsoft immersive loadout for different cosplays. Let me know how you want to utilize it. Again, if it's going to be something for some type of replica unit, if you want to do a Cobra cosplay, or you're trying to do something that's more sci-fi and this kind of fits within that theme, let me know down in the comment section below. I am genuinely curious as to what you guys could be utilizing this for. Overall, I think this is a very great addition to the Airsoft replica collection that KDB Weight has been producing. As someone who has been utilizing the KMP9 for several years now, indoors very successfully, I am very happy to have a lot of magazine crossover that can be utilized with this newer replica. Something that is certainly a little bit more modular and modern compared to something that came out many years ago. So if you guys have any further questions, let me know down in the comment section below. You can also reach out to us via our sales email, sales@ampedairsoft.com. I'm going to be one of the guys to be answering some of those questions. So if you have any questions about anything, let us know. I will see you guys in the next one. You guys take care, stay safe, stay positive. Adios.